I think it's clear that Meta is grappling with the very real challenge that social activity is shifting, and it's in this unenviable position of having to play catch up to a competitor, which is TikTok, of course. And we'll have to wait and see if this DAU growth was a blip.
Hey gang, it's Wednesday, May 4th. Jasmine and listeners, welcome to the Behind the Numbers Daily, an e-marketer podcast made possible by mParticle. I'm Marcus. Today I'm joined by our principal analyst who covers social media, is Jasmine Emberg.
Hey Marcus, hey everyone.
Hello there, thanks for hanging out today. Especially thanks for hanging out because you've had a very busy week doing a lot of press for a lot of social related earnings. But we've borrowed you for a few minutes to talk about Meta. But before that, today's fact. Plane seats. Why are plane seats blue? So not all of them are blue. Virgin Atlantic, for example, there's a red. But the majority of plane seats are blue because it's a calm color and relatively easy to keep clean. So Pantone named blue the 2020 color of the year due to its ability to instill calm and confidence. Hadn't noticed, to be honest.
Does that count for every shade of blue though? Do they all instill calm?
Probably some more than others. Yeah, I hadn't really paid too much attention to it. But it's particularly important because over 80% of people have some degree of fearfulness when it comes to flying, according to the BAA Training Aviation Academy. That's high.
I used to be terrified of flying, so I understand that.
What do you mean used to be? What changed?
I have no idea. It just kind of stopped. It just stopped one day, and I don't know what caused it or what caused it to go away.
Well, they say if you're worried about turbulence, then you should try, when turbulence is happening, you should try writing down your name with your opposite hand. So if you're right-handed, try doing it with your left hand because it takes so much brain power and focus that it distracts you. So maybe the fact that there's like TV screens in seats now, well, not on all airlines. I won't call them out, but I wasn't happy on my last flight. Maybe there's a distraction now, so that helps.
Perhaps.
Yeah. 80% is high though. It's not like you've got 80% of the plane just freaking out. People are keeping that in. I've never seen anyone panicking. All right, anyway, today's real topic. Meta's Q1 2022. So, Jasmine, we're talking all about Meta today. Lots to talk about. Lots and lots to talk about. Their user highlights, we'll go through those. Their revenue highlights, and then anything else that jumped out to you. Let's start with the user highlights. Nearly 2 billion people worldwide use Facebook. By Meta, we obviously mean Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and all of the properties that live under their now parent company, which is called Meta. We'll mainly focus on Facebook, a little bit of Instagram, I imagine. But nearly 2 billion people worldwide use Facebook every day. 1.96 billion to get specific. That's a quarter of all people on the earth use Facebook. Facebook added 31 million daily users in Q1, pretty much the same number that they added in Q1 last year. 2/3 of those new users came from Asia, the rest from the rest of the world. Pretty much North America added 1 million, Europe fell 2 million, but most of them came from not North America and Europe. Jasmine, the most interesting user figure for you though this quarter was blank.
So I would say the growth in daily active users, it was a surprise given the decline in Q4. But like you mentioned, it's also worth noting that a lot of that growth came from the rest of the world and not from the US.
Yeah, 31 million new users after falling 1 million last quarter, which was their first ever drop. They fell 1 million in Q4. They added 31. They really turned things around. But they really, really turned things around. I mean, year on year, you're right, it's just 4%. But quarter on quarter, that's the biggest quarterly gain they've had apart from one quarter. That's the second biggest quarterly gain they've had in the last 6 quarters. So it's a huge turnaround. That said, the big number, the family number that they have, where they count all the different properties, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, and WhatsApp, they added 50 million new users to their family daily active people number. So of all the people who use those properties daily, they added 50 million in Q1, but that was half as many somehow as last year. So that was down. And then they also added 50 million new users to their family of monthly active people number. So all those users of all those properties using it once a month. That was one third as many in Q1 last year as well. So the zoomed out umbrella figure of the family daily active people, the monthly active people, those figures weren't as good as last Q1. But Jasmine, your biggest takeaway from the user growth figures overall for Q1 is blank.
Well, I think it's clear that Meta is grappling with the very real challenge that social activity is shifting, and it's in this unenviable position of having to play catch up to a competitor, which is TikTok, of course. And we'll have to wait and see if this DAU growth was a blip. But at the same time, it's clear that Facebook and Instagram really have their work cut out for them to get their MAU growth where it needs to be.
Yeah. Speaking of TikTok, Salvador Rodriguez of the Wall Street Journal noted to combat rival TikTok, which Mr. Zuckerberg has cited as a rising threat, the company said it would more actively use artificial intelligence, or AI, to recommend content to users from around the social network, as opposed to populating their feeds mostly with posts from friends and family. That, in effect, means Facebook will function more like TikTok's For You feed. Jasmine, your favorite, let's put a grade on it.
My least
Jasmine
favorite.
hates grading. I don't know why. You feel guilty for giving bad grades. That was it, right?
I do. I told you. I feel like I want to give good grades to everyone, especially when they're trying. They're trying. They're just not doing very well. Okay. But I'm going to be...
Should have been a teacher. Yes, go ahead.
I'm going to be reasonable and fair and give them a C.
A C, yeah. Yeah,
I think that's the lowest grade I've given so far.
It might be, yeah. a C. Wish you were my teacher. A C for their user figures in Q1. Let's move to the revenue. Revenue highlights. Facebook made somehow over $27 billion in Q1. That's up just 6% on last Q1, the slowest revenue growth since Facebook went public in 2012. Last Q1 2021 revenue had grown 46%. So Q1 last year, 46% growth. This year, 6%. So 7 times slower, pretty much. Nearly half of that money, 45%, still comes from North America, but it barely grew, up just 1%. Revenue in Q1 for North America up just 1% ad revenue. Europe's revenue was flat. And Asia and rest of worlds grew 20% each. Jasmine, the most interesting revenue figure this quarter for you was blank.
I'll just go with the revenue growth.
The 6%? Yes. Why?
You know, it's clear that there are a lot of problems that Meta is facing in bringing in more ad revenues.
Yeah, they've a couple here, and interesting to see which one is more responsible. Is it said that they're still grappling with the new privacy rules from Apple, making it harder to target ads. The company has said the changes could cost it $10 billion in lost sales this year. $10 billion in lost sales this year. Just for context, last year the company made $114 billion. So it could be potentially close to 10% of what they make in a year. Or the BBC was noting that analysts are saying the businesses are pulling back on advertising as they grapple with rising costs and economic uncertainty stemming in part from the war in Ukraine. So interesting to see what is the biggest problem here. US and Canada average revenue per user was the figure that jumped out to me, Jasmine. That was flat in Q1 year on year, and that is where they're making most of the money. So to see that average revenue per user figure flat was concerning. The biggest takeaway overall from the revenue figures, do you think, for Facebook is blank?
Meta executives love the word headwinds. But no, in all seriousness, and to your point, there are just so many very real obstacles to its ad revenue growth right now. I don't think it's possible for us to be able to pinpoint which one specifically is causing the most damage. It's kind of this perfect storm that's really heading for Meta's ad business. But if we were to, I think, the larger long-term issue here is that there is major competition and advertiser budgets are really shifting away from Facebook and Instagram, and particularly towards TikTok once again.
Yeah. Yep. Meta saying they expect revenue in Q2 to be between $28 to $30 billion. That would be below analysts' estimates. So they still think that these challenges are going to be there now in the coming quarters. Final thing, Jasmine, was profit fell 21%. To 7.5 billion. That's better than analysts had expected, but it's the second straight quarter of declining profit, which they've never had before. Jasmine, a grade for their revenue highlights.
This is going to kill me, and it's going to be worse than the C I just gave.
Here we go.
I'm going to give them a D.
Oh.
Ouch. It hurts me.
Finally, Jasmine, any other interesting parts to this earnings call? Anything else jump out to you with regards to how Facebook performed in Q1? Or Meta, I should say.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing for me, or one of the most interesting things for me, I should say, is that the fact that Mark Zuckerberg and other executives seem to actively avoid using the word TikTok on the earnings call. It was clearly the elephant in the room with everything that they were talking about, or almost everything that they were talking about. But in the Q4 2021 earnings call, they actually name-checked TikTok repeatedly. And this time, that didn't happen.
Interesting. Well, that's what we've got time for the lead. It's time now for the halftime report. Jasmine, we'll take an overall grade. So we're going to get you to choose between the C or the D for Facebook, and then one takeaway from the first half.
Can I say C minus?
No, nope. Nice try.
Okay. This hard, but I'll go with the C.
Okay. Can't say
Are
I'm
you surprised?
Nope. A C for Facebook.
My grades aren't real. Just so everyone knows.
A questionable C and a takeaway. What's the main takeaway here, Jasmine?
So one of my big takeaways is that Meta is clearly focused on building the metaverse, but we are still a very long way away from that. And the real competition right now within social media is in video. And a lot of that has been brought up by the rise in TikTok. And Meta is going to have to be really disciplined in order to be able to compete directly with TikTok going forward.
And we're going to talk a bit about that in the second half. I will say there's a quote from Daniel Ives, an analyst at Wedbush Securities, saying Meta is facing Category 5 hurricane. There's the term headwinds from engagement to advertising to growth. He was cited in a recent New York Times piece, saying there's a sense that the company, Facebook, Meta, still doesn't have its arms around all the changes with the iPhone or with losing users. Actually, Jasmine, in tomorrow's episode of the Behind the Numbers Daily, myself and principal analysts Andrew Lipsman, who covers retail for us, and Deborah Aho Williamson, who covers social with you, will be exploring how sturdy the three legs of Facebook's advertising stool really are. Yeah, Andrew has a theory that things aren't as rosy as they may seem. So tune in tomorrow for that conversation. But now it's time for In Other News. First, a quick word from our sponsor, mParticle. At the end of the day, your customer has to be at the center of everything you do. This starts with the right customer data strategy, as well as the right foundation to solve the challenges that typically inhibit success, such as data quality, data governance, and connectivity. mParticle is your real-time customer data infrastructure that helps you accelerate your data strategy by cleansing, visualizing, and integrating your customer data from anywhere to anywhere. Ultimately, better data leads to better decisions, better customer experiences, and better outcomes. See why the best brands choose mParticle. Go to www.mparticle.com. Right, folks, we are back today in other news. Is Reels Facebook's future? And influencers are becoming brand ambassadors. Story 1. Reels is Facebook's TikTok clone and its future, writes Shirin Ghaffari of Recode. Meta is all in on Reels, its short-form video feature that competes with TikTok, but it has gotten less buzz than its big metaverse bet. But Ms. Ghaffari believes that doesn't mean Reels should be overlooked. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg mentioned Reels at least 20 times on its earnings call. Reels is also listed as his top key investment area for 2022. Meta says that Reels is the fastest growing content format on Facebook and Instagram. It's growing quicker than older features like Stories, Watch, and Feed posts. Ms. Ghaffari also notes that Facebook says Reels is now the biggest contributor to engagement growth on Instagram. It's where people's likes, comments, and shares are increasing the most. So, Jasmine, the idea that Reels is Facebook's future is blank.
I would go with uncertain. And there's a couple of reasons for this.
Okay.
And I think one, what struck me with this article was the point about whether Reels is the fastest growing content format because users want to see more Reels or because Facebook and Instagram are serving it to them. In reality, I think it's a combination of both. Facebook has obviously tried video before, then they've deprioritized it, and now they're trying it again. I think, one reason why it's taking off more now is that it's clear that there's also a consumer shift and greater appetite for video and social platforms than there ever has been before. But for Reels to be the future of Facebook, Facebook is also going to have to figure out how to monetize Reels at a better rate.
Yes, this is spot because it's not monetizing at the same rate as some of the other things it has, feed, stories, formats. Right. But our director of briefing, Jeremy Goldman, was also noting that it's still eating into the time spent on those legacy formats, but not pulling in the dollars whilst doing so. Reels now makes up over 20% of the time people spend on Instagram, according to their earnings. Story 2, influencers are becoming brand ambassadors. Even for the poshest of brands, writes The Economist, influencers are both a walking advert and a trusted friend, it writes. The article notes that the National Bureau of Statistics in China, which is an influencer pioneer, that says that influencers contributed $210 billion to the economy, believe it or not. It's equivalent to 1.4% of GDP. Our estimates suggest that 75% of US marketers will spend money on influencers this year. That's up from 65% 2 years ago, 65 to 75 in those 2 years, in terms of US marketers spending money on influencers. The piece points out that brands' global spending on influencers may reach $16 billion this year, more than 1 in 10 ad dollars on social media. But Jasmine, the one thing you're paying closest attention to this year when it comes to influencers is blank.
Influencer monetization. I mean, one reason why influencer marketing spending is growing is because influencers have long needed brand partnerships in order to be able to bring in income. We have seen all these alternative revenue streams come about over the past couple of years, but now a lot of them are also under fire. Meta, for one, just said that in the metaverse, those creators would have to give a 47.5% cut of their earnings to Meta, which is one thing that seems a little contrary to what they had said before about not taking a cut of Instagram or Facebook creators' revenues until 2023. So it'll be really interesting to see how all of these controversies and really impact the way that creators are monetizing this year.
Yeah. There was a point in the article I found interesting talking about influencers and luxury brands. It said, as well as new opportunities, influencers present new risks, especially for brands whose luxury identities rely on price discipline and exclusivity. Influencer-led, live-streamed shopping events in China by Louis Vuitton and Gucci were ridiculed for cheapening their brand. So influencers not for everyone in every context, but still a huge deal, especially in China. 1.4% of GDP. It's insane. Jasmine, that's all we've got time for. Thank you so much for hanging out today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you to Victoria, who edits the show. She's back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to everyone listening in. We'll see you tomorrow for the Behind the Numbers Daily, an eMarketer podcast made possible by mParticle. I'm a bit worried now. 80% of people on the plane.
Are you not afraid of flying at all?
No, I love it.
You love it?
I think it's great. Well, I don't love it. That's strong. You can feel very compact. But that feeling when you just take off, I think it feels great. You're flying. You're flying. You're a human who is flying. It's remarkable.
I mean, it's a very weird concept if you really think about it.
For humans to do, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it's a weird thing because you pay all this money to fly, and then you're always not sure if you're going to make it, It's a weird thing to be worried about, even though you'll definitely make it. You'll be fine.
I have never thought about it that way, and now I will never not think about it that way.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm going to stop talking. Let's talk about